Coach Mangini is here. Joe Burrow has fond memories of Louisiana. He sat down with Kay Adams and talked about the Super Bowl being in New Orleans this year, home to his last championship with LSU 4.5 years ago. Take a listen.
Pretty nice to have a nice Super Bowl moment in New Orleans, right?
Of course.
New Orleans, come on. How often do you think about that?
I've definitely thought about it.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Insightful. Joe Burrow playing in New Orleans national championship game against Clemson. He did great and had a cigar afterwards. And then he also beat up on the Saints 2022 Week 6. So overall, 10 touchdowns, no interceptions. Pretty good. Brew, you have a bit of a love-hate relationship with the Bengals. You used to pick the Bengals. Well, I know that.
From Cincinnati.
Yeah.
From Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah.
And Louisiana.
Oh, yeah.
Well, what about the Iowa? What about the Iowa?
I'm from Iowa,
Oh, okay,
too.
got it. Okay.
Sometime in upstate New York.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Anywhere you've lived, you're from.
Yes, exactly.
Got it.
But you were in on the Bengals. Remember then you abandoned the Bengals and you were back in. So it's not predictions week yet.
Yeah.
So our people, I changed this to, are you sleeping on Burrow and the Bengals?
Oh, you changed it to me.
Yeah.
Yes. I am. Look, I don't think they're not going to be my pick. They're not going to be my pick in the AFC, and they're not going to be my pick in the AFC North. Now, I think they'll make the playoffs, assuming Burrow's healthy. Baltimore's got their number. All right, Lamar's 8-2 against Cincinnati, 4-1 against Burrow. And you remember last year, Nick, when I picked the Ravens to get to the Super Bowl, my thinking was maybe Cincinnati will get Kansas City in the playoffs and knock them out.
Because you had Ravens-Bengals in the AFC title game.
So I wasn't so much
Chiefs not
thinking
even
that
making
Ravens might beat the Chiefs, but the Ravens can beat the Bengals. All right, so but I think they're going to be good if Burrow's healthy. I know they lost Mixon, but I like Zach Moss. Their receivers are disgruntled right now, but I think they'll clear this up. And whether Chase gets a contract or not, I think he'll play. They got to play. Yeah. T. Higgins has to play. So, yeah, if Burrow's healthy, I think they'll be good, but they are not my pick to win even their division. So if you think that's sleeping on them, then, yeah, I'm sleeping on them.
It's tough to pick the Bengals right now to go very far because there were a lot of problems last year. So there's the Joe Burrow problem. He wasn't healthy early. Then when he came back and played, they only went 5-5 when he was a starter. His numbers were worse than Jake Browning's. Now, he ended up playing better as the season went on. We fast forward to this year, he's got disgruntled receivers, so you got to get through that. They've tried to address some of the things with offensive tackles. They brought in a couple guys, so that potentially should be good. But there were a lot of problems defensively. They were one of the worst teams in yards per run, and one of the worst teams in yards per pass. So usually when that happens, that isn't combined with the fact that they were one of the worst teams in deep balls given up in passes and one of the worst teams in plus 20-yard runs. So you don't usually have the combination of you're bad on the average and you're giving up these deep balls. They tried to address that with changes and overhaul in the secondary and some other things from a personnel perspective. But that defense was pretty good when they were good. And they could do a lot of, they were a little bit underrated as well.
So that's, if I can just show the numbers on that, because I totally agree with Coach. It's about if the defense gets back to where it had been. Because, and I know we're going to talk about Burrow and Mahomes later, and when they won those 3 straight games against the Chiefs, Burrow played well. But the bigger story to me of those Chiefs losses was Lou Anarumo and that defense really making Patrick second-guess himself, play the worst half of football of his life in that AFC title game, make some uncharacteristic mistakes. And the Bengals had been, under Lou Anarumo, kind of the opposite of the Bills' defense the last few years, which was the Bills would have these gaudy regular seasons, and then they would play a great quarterback in the postseason, and he would carve them up. And that's one of the reasons that they made Leslie Frazier step aside and they made changes. The Bengals would have average regular seasons defensively and then really succeed against these great quarterbacks in the postseason. Last year, that defense fell off a cliff. So I do think people are sleeping on them a bit. I think that when Joe Burrow is healthy, they are a top 3 team in the AFC clearly. If they can just have an average defense. The question is, are they going to have an average defense?
Okay, so I really think the biggest reason why people are sleeping on Cincinnati, it's just actually very simple. Like, we don't have to even complicate it too much. It's just the fact that Joe Burrow has been unable to stay healthy, unfortunately, and the Bengals, even when they did play with him, like as they kind of highlighted, 5-5, it didn't look great. Although we can explain that away, right? Joe Burrow was playing, but was he actually really healthy? It also takes a minute to kind of get situated, yada yada yada. But it's just a fact that we haven't been able to see the consistently the greatness of Cincinnati Bengals. We haven't been able to see that in any type of consistent basis because there's been constant issues with injuries, especially with Joe Burrow, right? And because of that, we live in a world where we're just like, what's right in front of us? And so who leapfrogs them is the Ravens, right? The Ravens went to the AFC Championship game, right? Now people are like, well, see, the Ravens are better than the Bengals. And then it's like, look what CJ Stroud and the Texans were able to do last season. See, they're better than the Bengals, and they're actually even getting better right now because of the pieces that they've added. So to me, and then you look at the Packers and you look at, I'm trying to think if there's any other team, the Lions, right? And I know that's different different conferences, but when you see some of these younger, more exciting teams kind of just really rise to the top and have big moments, people are probably, if you just ask them, who do you think is better, the Packers or the Bengals? People would probably say the Packers because people don't really even know the last time they saw the Bengals be great. They're like, I don't know, when was that? Was that 22, 23, 2019? When did Joe Burrow enter the league? And it's like, what about the Packers? Oh, that playoff game against the Cowboys. Jordan Love, he's legit, right? Like it just happened. And so again, it's like I would love to kind of do that poll for people that like don't really know very well or not thinking about it too hard. Because I think if people said like, who would win a Super Bowl right now? Jordan Love and the Packers or Joe Burrow and the Bengals? And I really strongly believe that a lot of people would pick the Packers more than they would have obviously like a year or so ago. So I think that's why people are now sleeping on Cincinnati. Because also a lot of people, for whatever reason, and I'm not afraid of this, but they're afraid to list a lot of teams, right? We're obsessed with only being able to reduce, who can win or who's great to like 3 or 4 teams or whatever, right? It's always like that little bubble that they always talk about, and it's always this. I'm not afraid of that. I'm like, if I really believe that there's 30 great teams in the NFL, I will say I think there's 30 great teams. Like I will wholeheartedly just be like, I really have no idea what's going to happen because I think all these teams are great. Like I'm not afraid to say that. Whereas it seems like the media always wants to try to just reduce it to just the 49ers, the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Cowboys. That's it. No other teams, right? Whatever it is. I just made up those teams. Don't get too obsessed with those names, right? Like that's what it is. And again, I don't do that. So, and I'm curious to think kind of like how maybe the average fan, kind of perceives it because I don't believe that I'm the average fan in that regard. But so I do think that's why Cincinnati kind of finds themselves, outward looking in, especially because I think there's also the fear that Joe Burrow is going to get hurt again or he can't stay healthy. So then if you do pick, the Bengals, especially if you're in the media and you're like, I think the Bengals are going to be great, blah, 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 blah. You have to kind of really cross your fingers that Joe Burrow is going to stay healthy because if not, you then have to say, well, I thought they were going to be good. I didn't know Joe Burrow was going to get, injured again or whatever. So it's definitely just been a messy offseason, a messy last, let's just call it a year from August 2023 to August 2024, a complete year. It's been messy for the Bengals, whether it be injuries, whether it be contract issues, whatever it may be, whether it be defenses falling off cliffs, it's just been messy. While in the last year, from August to August, you look at what the Texans did, you look at what the Packers did, you look at what the Lions did, right? You look at what some of these teams have done, the 49ers, the Ravens, and they're just going up, right? Like it's just been this upward trajectory, and it hasn't been like that for the Bengals. So I don't think it's unfair for people to discount the Bengals. I personally don't know what to do with the Bengals. Like, I'll be completely honest. I'm a huge Joe Burrow fan, and a huge Taylor fan, but I really don't know what to do. It is unsettling and very frustrating that Joe Burrow can't stay healthy. I believe he can. I don't think that there's anything special about him that will just make him just, keep getting hurt. But I really don't know. And I don't know if they can get that defense back in line. I do know, and this is kind of what Mangini was saying, where it's like, if you have a healthy team and you have a healthy Joe Burrow, then yes, you have. I mean, like, there's just no way that you're gonna be like, oh, the Bengals, they don't have enough what it takes. Like, of course they do, right? Like, I will believe that. So if they are healthy and their defense can kind of get back on track, then I mean, like, there's just no way that you would make those statements of like they have no chance or no way, or they can't beat the Chiefs, blah 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 blah, because they've proven that they can, and we know who Joe Burrow is, right? Very much KD. You know who he is, right? We know what he's capable of doing, and his success and his greatness is not a fluke. It's not just a flash in the pan. So it's just a matter really of health and kind of like if the Bengals can kind of settle this unsettledness, right, with the receivers, with the defense, if they can kind of get things back on track. But when you're not winning, when your quarterback can't stay healthy, then yeah, you're going to have wide receivers being like, well, just give me my money, man. Don't tell me that you're trying to win because Joe Burrow can't even stay healthy. So if you want to have at least some players here, pay me my money, right? Like, you could see why they're trying to get their money, and you can see why defense, it's hard to get consistency out of your defense when you have a quarterback who's in and out of the lineup, because there's no sense that you're going to be able to win. And like we've kind of talked about a lot in the past, is so much of defense is effort driven. And it can just get really exhausting when you're playing with a backup quarterback. It just can, especially when there's no sight that your real bona fide quarterback is going to be there. Now, sometimes you do get a flash in the pan with a backup quarterback, and the defense and the offense as a whole can rally as well. You can get that, and it seemed like that's what the Bengals were going to kind of do behind Jake Browning. But then when that kind of came back down to earth, it kind of crashed down to earth, and it was definitely not a smooth landing. So it kind of makes sense that things started to unravel in pretty much every aspect of the Bengals game. But I think at the very least you could see that they got the bones of a good team. They were just not set up to be very resilient in that regard. And so I'm just curious to see if the Cincinnati Bengals can not only just bring Joe Burrow back and kind of recapture who they were, but if they can actually show to be a lot more durable and resilient throughout the season. We haven't really seen it, so who honestly really knows. But those are just my thoughts. I would absolutely love to hear yours. Do you guys think people are sleeping on the Cincinnati Bengals? And if they are or they aren't, let me know why. I'm definitely curious to hear your thoughts. Do you really think that the Bengals can actually make some noise this season and actually be a threat to, say, the Ravens or the Chiefs? Or do you think that teams like the Texans have already kind of leapfrogged them? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I would absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.